I've got something to confess. And it's the fact that I started doing my business and I tested out all these different strategies without really having a strategy behind it. And that just made me spiral. Okay, I did sort of have a strategy, but I didn't really have a complete built out strategy about how I should take each different tactic and then how it would fit into the overall picture. And it's crazy to think that I do this as a day to day on it. And it's crazy to think that I do this on a day to day basis with multiple businesses. Yet when it comes to my own business, I forgot to do the most important thing. So I'm confessing it here to you guys. Now, the good thing is I was able to take a step back. First of all, understand why it's so hard for businesses to get this right. And second of all, take a step back and really map out how all the tactics fall in line with the overall strategy. Now, it doesn't mean that the tactics were wrong. It just means that I wasn't very aware about how everything was going to tie in together. Once you have that strategy, once you understand how everything ties in together, it makes it a lot easier to test different things out. So I'm going to walk you through the same process I just took on how I go about really understanding how the different tactics are compressed into an overall strategy. And I'm going to walk you through my same framework that I use with clients called the C.L.I.M.B model, where in this model, I'm going to show you what are the most important things that you need to keep in mind when building a strategy. Whether it's tactics, whether it's choosing a channel, whether it's building your lead capture systems, whatever that might be, it's going to be extremely important to always have a strategy and a system behind it, which again, I forgot to do. So hopefully with this video, this walkthrough, you're going to be able to do it for your own business as well and understand that instead of just testing different tactics out, it's important to have a strategy where everything ties in together. That way you're going to be more efficient in the way you spend your time, in the way you spend your money, and you're probably going to get better results as well. So I'm going to show you how I actually go about mapping this out by hand, and hopefully you can follow along and do it for your own business as well. Okay, so before I walk you through what I did, I want to share with you why it's very important to have a strategy. Now, what happens most of the times, and what happened to me as well, is that I started thinking about different tactics that I could implement to start attracting clients, whether it's through outbound or whether it's through inbound. But we're always thinking about, okay, how can we increase the amount of leads that we're going to get, right? Which means that we're going to have more revenue. And we start thinking about all the different tactics that are going to help us get there. However, what happens when we do this without a strategy is that basically we start testing things around that are make it hard for us to really track what we're doing. So let's say that we're going to test cold email over here, and then we're going to start testing LinkedIn content over here, and then we're going to start testing LinkedIn outreach. But we also want to start testing Instagram, right? But we also want to build out a newsletter. And we also want to run ads. We also want to do TikTok. We want to do offline strategies. We want to go to events. Of course, we want to go to events, right? And what happens with this is that there is nothing that ties all these things together, right? There's nothing that will tie all these things together. Everything is confused. Everything is just roaming around. There is no order as to how we go about really making sure that all this is equating to cash, which is extremely important. That's what we're trying to go after: cash and efficiency of time, right? So when we do tactics, it's kind of like trying to hit a bullseye blindfolded. You don't know what you're going to hit. So what happens when you have a strategy and when you go about building a strategy before you start understanding the tactics is that you start to. Another great analogy of this is imagine that you want to get to the top. This is the top. This is where you make all the money. And right now you're here. Your money is at zero. There's no money. So what happens when we start doing tactics is we start building the ladder. We start to climb towards hitting this goal. but we do it in a way that is inefficient. We might want to build a strategy here. We might build another one here. Maybe we build another one here. But this makes it impossible for us to really get to this goal, which we have over here, which is a financial goal that we have for our business. So that is what happens when we just start testing out tactics. Again, this could be Instagram, this could be LinkedIn, this could be cold email, whatever it is that you're testing. If you don't have something that ties in together, then it's going to be very hard. It's impossible to make these sleeps in a way that is efficient for you to actually hit the goal of getting to the financial and the finances that you want to get to, as well as hitting the business growth that you're aiming for. So when we build out a strategy, what we start doing is we first identify where we're at, right? What is point A, and where we want to get to. This goes through understanding what are the goals that we have, right? What do we see as a 1 year goal? What do we see as a 2 year goal? What are the current things that we have in the business that we can use? Meaning, do we have enough systems? Do we have the team to get us there? Do we have the requirements in order to fulfill? We first need to start analyzing all this before we can even get to here, because we need to understand where we're starting from. So once we've gone through this, we can then start mapping out what the ladder is going to look like. So by implementing the strategy beforehand, by first analyzing this, which is what I call the create and launch, the first two acronyms of the C.L.I.M.B, I'm going to write it down over here. There we go. By mapping out the different stages that we're going to have to go through, we can then start really building a strategy. So the first thing that you want to do, and it's the first thing I did after I analyzed and realized that I had all these different tactics about that weren't just making sense. I went back and I focused on the C and the L, which are create and launch, meaning we first started to understand what are the goals that we're aiming for, what is a 1 year plan, what is the 2 year plan that we have, what's the current status of the business and where we want to get to. So that is the first thing. And then we start thinking about, okay, who is our target market? Who are we going to reach out to understand what are the different channels that we need to leverage in order to really get to them? By then understanding, again, the create and the launch stage, which goes over target market, which goes over the different channels, right? And which goes over the different goals, then we can understand what are the different things that we're going to have to implement in order to hit this revenue. So that allows us to then build out a complete ladder that will allow us and help us to get to where we want to get to, which is the revenue goal that we're trying to hit. So again, the first step that you always want to take is understand what are the goals, who is your target market, and be super clear about that, and what are the different channels that you're going to be using. Now, in the channel stage, you can go about and come up with a list of all the different channels that you would like to have. It could be podcast, it could be YouTube ads, it could be Facebook ads, it could be organic content, whatever that might be. But you need to understand what are all the different possibilities, always ensuring that they are really going to resonate with your target market, not because it's trendy, not because it's what everybody else is telling you, but rather because you've done an in-depth analysis to understand who your target market is and what are the channels that they're really using. Once we understand that, we can start mapping out how these different channels fit into the strategy, right? How they start to go about to help us build this. That is the first stage. Now, afterwards, we talk about impact. So impact goes over everything that we need to ensure that once we start getting traffic from this, from the different channels, we can impact positively our leads. Now, the best way to go about doing this is through lead magnets. We can go about through lead capture systems. We implement also sales strategies, right? Um, Sales strategies, but it's very important for you to understand how are you going to take this lead, this person right here, and we're gonna erase this. How are you going to take this one person that you've now defined to be your target market and take them through the whole ladder, ensuring that eventually you can convert them into a paying client? So, again, the best way to do so is first understanding who they are, what channels they use, and then thinking about what are resources that are going to allow you to nurture this person. Now, there's a very interesting statistic that says that only 3% of your audience is ready to buy at any given moment. Oops, I should have done it here. Only 3% is ready to buy at any given moment, right? Now, there's a possibility for you to go about and potentially acquire an additional 30%, 37% of the overall market that you can acquire. The only way you can go about acquiring this market is through nurturing processes, right? And this is and this is where the impact comes into play, right? So let's say that we've identified that there are some channels that we're going to be using, right? Let's say LinkedIn. Let's say that we're going to be running ads. Let's say that we are going to be doing cold emails, whatever that might be. Those might be the different channels that you're going to be using. However, you need to ensure that you have the systems built out to capture and nurture those leads. So this could be a lead magnet that you set up. This could be a nurture sequence afterwards, right? Lead nurture sequence that you build for them. This could be a strategy call that you have afterwards with them. But you need to understand what are the different things that you're going to be taking them through in order to nurture them through the process, right? Once you have the impact written down, the next big thing is understanding and measuring how these different channels and how these different nurturing and capturing systems are working. It's very, very important for you to be doing this consistently because it's really the only way that you are going to be able to optimize this. Now, the best way to go about doing this, since we're still strategizing on building out the whole marketing roadmap, is understanding what are the KPIs that you are going to be creating for your business. And for each of these things, you need to have 20 or 30 different KPIs. It can be one metric that you're tracking, and that is going to be more than enough. So, for instance, if this is LinkedIn, I might be having a KPI of, okay, how many people am I taking from LinkedIn, right? And getting them to sign up to my lead magnet. This number over here might be the KPI that I set for this. Now, if I want to use ads, again, I can also say, okay, how many people are opting into this same thing? And again, you can use just one metric, but it's going to be very important for you to measure this and ensure that whoever is responsible in your team for setting up these different campaigns, that person is responsible for ensuring that the KPIs are working and that they're constantly optimizing. And that's where the measure part is going to be really efficient. Now, one big thing that happens here is that most businesses stop right here and they forget about the B. The B is what I call the boost and optimize. Now, this is extremely important because we get so focused on acquiring clients that we forget what happens after we've actually acquired those clients. So, how can we increase lifetime value? How can we sell them additional services? How can we get them to refer more business our way? And this is extremely, extremely important because if we don't do this, then it's going to be very, very hard for us to have a business that is really going to hit the revenue goals that we're going after. Okay. So in the boost and optimize, you want to be thinking about how can you refine your marketing efforts? How can you improve client retention? How can you continuously innovate in the way that they get serviced? You can do this through different surveys. You can do this through having additional services or add-ons that you can sell them on. You can have additional bonuses that will help you ensure that they're having a great experience and therefore refer more business your way. So, how does this all tie into, once we've identified the framework, how does this all tie into actually building out a strategy? Well, the first thing that you want to understand is, once we have defined how, what are the different channels that we're going to use? So I'm just going to write them down over here. Let's say that we've chosen three, right? One, two, sorry, one, two, and three. We want to start thinking about how is the workflow that's going to get us to the end goal, which is money over here, right? How do we get to that end goal? And what you want to start doing is understanding how everything ties in together, which is what I was missing. I had the different tactics and I knew where I wanted to get to, but I had all these gaps that I was missing. So it's going to be important for you to think about, okay, this tactic, what do I need to have in place here in the different sections in order for me to achieve the outcome that I want? Now, how does this, how do people react to this? So for instance, if we're coming from LinkedIn over here, what happens? What do I do in LinkedIn? What is the next step that I want them to go through, right? If I think about what the next step might be, which might be, hey, I want them to download a lead magnet, right? A lead magnet, then what do I have to do? Well, then the content about in LinkedIn has to be focused towards directing them to the lead magnet. Cool. So we got that first step figured out. We need to have a lead capture system in place. But what happens with the lead magnet? We can't just stay there. What do we want them to do after this? What is that next step that we're going to be taking them to? And what happens if they don't take action? Well, if they do take action, we might want to send them to the next stage, which might be looking at a VSL or booking a call, right? That could be the next step. Now, what happens if they don't download? Now, the next step, if they do take action on the lead magnet, could be great. We're going to input them into a nurture sequence, right? A nurture sequence. But what happens if they don't take action? And you have to be thinking about all these different things, all the different steps. And this is where the strategy and the lean system setup really comes into play. So you need to start thinking, okay, if they don't do this, if they don't take action, what's going to happen? Well, I might, still input them into a nurture sequence, but it's going to be a little bit different. This is going to be to try to reactivate these leads, right? To get them to want to download the lead magnet. Cool. And we can continue to do this for however emails we want. Now, what happens for the people that do book a call? Well, after this, sorry, not book a call, for the people that actually download the lead magnet, well, in the lead magnet, we might want to invite them, once that's in our nurture sequence, to book a call with us. So this becomes a call, right? We invite them to hop on a call with us. So what happens in the call? Well, we can't just wait for the call. We need to think about what's the next step that we're going to be taking them through. How do we ensure that they actually follow on the call? And again, this could be either sending them more resources. It could be having an additional lead nurture sequence. It could be sharing case studies, testimonials, whatever that might be, right? But what I'm trying to get to is, you can't just be thinking about the different things that you want to have, or the different strategies that you want to be running, like cold email, like LinkedIn, like ads. You want to be thinking about how all this ties into a strategy that is going to help you get to here. What are the different steps that your prospect is going to have to take in order for you to really close the sale with them? And that's what the strategy is all about. So that is what I focus on with the C.L.I.M.B method, which again, remember, the first one is create. So, how do we go about creating and really launching a strategy, analyzing all the gaps, analyzing the existing resources that we have? Then we focus on the lead system, meaning what are the different ways that we're going to be nurturing these people, we're going to be capturing these leads. Then we focus on the impact. So, how do we ensure that we have these nurture campaigns set up in process, that they are automated, that they are efficient? Then we look at measuring. That way we can optimize the efficiency of the campaigns. We're not spending money inefficiently, and we can quickly test new things if needed. And finally, how do we go about boosting what we're already doing to increase LTV, to gain more referrals, to upsell them into new products or services that we have? So hopefully this video is helpful. Again, how do we go about building this out? So what I just showed you is what I went ahead and implemented for my own business, which is my own C.L.I.M.B model. Now, again, remember, this is all about iterating as well. You want to be testing continuously the target market, the messaging. And I know I went very basic on the different steps, but again, if you understand what the process that you need to implement is, it's going to be a lot more efficient. That way you don't have tactics that are just running around, but rather there's a whole strategy behind it. Now, granted, the C.L.I.M.B model is a little bit more complex than that. There's things like business assets and goals, there's KPI and results that we're going to be tracking. But with the basics that I just gave you, it should give you an idea about how you can go and start creating a strategy for your own business. That way you're not just testing different tactics out without a true north. If you want to learn more about the C.L.I.M.B model, you can go ahead and book a call with me. I can discuss this more in depth. We can analyze your own business, or just follow me and subscribe as I keep adding more information about the different stages of the C.L.I.M B model and how you can go about implementing it for your business.